Alright, so today we're going to talk about everything I hate about my C8 Corvette. The first thing we're going to start with is the front end of this car compared to a lot of sports cars I've owned or even just low cars. It rubs a lot, and it's not actually the front lip, it's actually these air dams up underneath the front. There's a little relief cut here, and this is like a plasticky rubbery material, so it does give way, but regardless of whether you have a front lip on the car or not, this is the lowest point on the front end, so this rubs on, no joke, everything. Speed bumps, going in and out of driveways, it's just really annoying. So there's that relief cut, but even with that relief cut, 2,000 miles on this thing, and I don't feel like I take it, you know, I feel like I'm pretty careful going over speed bumps and such, but even with that, it still rubs on everything. With that said, I have the jack pucks up underneath, and the jack pucks still rub on everything. That's like the lowest point behind the wheel arch. I'd rather that rub than the fiberglass side skirts, so I put that there. If I go too fast over a speed bump, it most definitely rubs. The next thing I want to talk about is the hatch vents on the coupe model. So the hardtop convertible, you have the downside of not being able to see the engine, which that's a problem in its own. I hate that. I think the hardtop convertibles are stupid, but that's just me. I understand the convenience when you get a little older, but with all mid-engine cars, you have vents. Well, I say all, but most. Things like the R8 and this, even the MC20, they get a lot of water down in the engine bay through these vents. With that said, it kind of sucks. When you wash it, you have to clean the engine bay. But this is something I didn't know before I received the car, is the back glass actually has a cut in the back of it for air to come out. Same kind of thing, water just finds its way down in there every time. This can be a problem, not just for keeping the car clean, but visibility into the engine bay. That window there in the back, it gets pretty dirty. I'll overlay a video from the inside of how bad that actually looks. I just kind of wish that there was some kind of gutter system in here, like even a tray underneath with where water can flow down to the bottom and then flow outward. So just, you know, a cover here with a gutter at the bottom, and then all the water could escape in one direction. Kind of like over here, this is actually a drain hole for the hatch area. This is a drain hole for the back of the hatch area. It actually escapes behind the bumper. I just wish they had something up here on the hatch. But yeah, maybe in a future model they'll fix that. So one problem that I have noticed is in the rear trunk area, so behind the engine, this area they say not to put groceries in it, and they say it for a reason. Basically, there's so much heat that comes from the engine bay into the rear trunk area that you can't keep things like ice cream, eggs, milk, anything that's perishable fairly quickly. You can't put it back here because it just gets, you know, it gets ruined. So there's a fix you can do for this. It's fairly cheap. I've already done it on my vehicle, and I've noticed that the temperatures have dropped in the very back, and I keep things in here. I actually always keep a bottle of Tapatio and a bag of Tostitos back here because I like to snack when I go places. But basically, I'll make a separate video on how to fix this the easy way, and then so you can still enjoy your extra trunk space in the back. So I will applaud GM on the amount of trunk space. We have this huge trunk in the back, and then we have that decent sized frunk in the front. And if you compare it to other vehicles that are similar, like the Maserati MC20 that just came out, they don't have this much space in the front. Wife can fit inside of this frunk. So I would say that's a decent size. Good job, GM. You can literally fit a woman in there. So I guess they didn't think about it, but it's actually a 3-seater. And for those of you concerned, yeah, if someone does somehow get trapped in there, there is a button in the front and the rear to escape. So yeah. Now I'm not saying put someone in your frunk and drive around with it. That's hella dangerous. But I'm just saying someone can fit in there. All right, so I really hate the wireless charger location. So in this case, I have a 2LT. So the 2LT and the 3LT 2023 and newer will have a wireless charger here. I really hate where it's at. I get it. GM, you're trying to be safe with the car. You don't want people texting and driving and such, but what happens is when I get in and out, I forget the phone there. Not only do I forget the phone there, but I hurt my shoulder when I have to rotate all the way behind me to pull my phone out of the center. So I really hate that. I do like wireless CarPlay, but I hate where they put the wireless charger. I kind of feel like they could have put it in the center console here. I barely touch this because the center is so high. You know, you don't really touch it as the driver, but I mean, there's other options. They could have put it in the side of the console here. There's a lot of things they could have done with it. All right, so let's talk about the headlights. So the headlights on this car are absolutely beautiful. I like the daytime running light or the fiber light, LED light. A lot of people call it a lot of different things. But what I don't like is from the factory, they misaligned the bumpers. And in this case, my fender is misaligned. And it's actually chipping off the paint. I have 2,000 miles on this car and the paint is chipping around the headlight. And there's a TSB or a tech service bulletin from General Motors on having this replaced under warranty. It's just really frustrating that 3 or 4 years into production, cars are still coming off the assembly line like this. It's pretty freaking frustrating. You can see that. So now the fender has to get painted and the bumper has to get painted. And if you have the whole thing resprayed, the chances of the paint not matching are pretty bad. So I'd rather just have the inside of the fender and the inside of the bumper scuffed up and resprayed and kind of blended instead of the whole thing sprayed, because if you haven't seen the factory videos on these cars, they actually spray all the panels together for one car and then they meet up later in assembly. So that's how they guarantee that the paint matches every time. If they have to fix, you know, these issues, the bumper and fender issues, then you know, the paint's gonna look terrible, and I really don't want that on such an expensive car. So I do plan on having GM fix that. I just haven't taken it in yet because I know I'm gonna get rock chips in the bumper, and I'd rather just see what they can do later for me. The next thing I hate is the wheel options for this car. So there are a couple of manufacturers that make wheels for this car. I think a lot of them are pretty gaudy looking or ricey looking. A lot of the older guys, they really like the gaudy, ricey look. I'm not a fan of it personally. I wanted to go with something simple, kind of like the wheels that came on the older, higher trim levels of the Corvette. I went with the MRR M755s. I have been looking at wheels again. I do like the T37s. That's just because, you know, I was heavy into JDM cars for a while. But right now, these work for me. They are lighter than stock. And so I honestly will never put a wheel that's heavier than stock on a car, because if you're going to spend money on a wheel, you might as well get a performance advantage out of it. That's kind of how I feel about these. But I do think the wheel options for this car kind of stink. There's not a ton out there that actually look good, or, you know, I wish companies like SSR, Ray's work, the works, you know, I would like to see them come out with more wheels that are just direct fitment on these instead of having to custom make them or have them custom spec'd every time, because then the wheels end up being $700-800 per wheel. In this case, these wheels are matched up for fitment. They have a lot of Z06 style wheels that fit this car as well that have been coming out, MRR anyways. Personally, I don't care for the look of the Aerolarri wheels. I know some guys like them, but not really my thing. I just wish there were more wheel options out there. The next thing I want to talk about is the windshield washers on this car, or the sprayers, right? If you have the window down, which most of us have the window down when we're driving our car, right? And you have a bug hit your windshield, you're gonna clean it off. The problem with that is when you spray, guess where all that water comes? Well, mostly when you're driving. I'll try and get a video of it while I'm driving. All the washer fluid ends up in here and down the interior door card. And I hate that on this car, especially the AC Delco washer fluid that this comes with. It smells great. It smells kind of like Listerine. It's very expensive per bottle, but it all ends up on my interior, and I hate that. I hate it so much. You almost have to keep a rag in the door panel just for that. Well, that's all I have for this video. There's definitely some other things that I hate about this car, but I'm going to go more in depth on those in other videos.